Oh wow, Spectacular Spider-Man Season 3 Future Plans video. I'm sure that's never been done before. Haha. Okay, I did say I would make this video even though it's been done 1,000 times, but to be fair, I got quite a bit of information that not many people have, and I think I have absolutely everything that's already out there. What sucks is I'm gonna have to repeat information that's already been said in some other videos, I'm sure, but here we go. You know what, I have an idea. Let's make this interesting by doing an Iceberg type of style like video. I'm gonna do that with my facts video too because it's just popular and people like that format. Yay, popularity. Woohoo.
Hooray!
Oh yeah, and if you don't know what an iceberg is, it basically goes from the least known things to the most known things. And also, we can't cuss in our videos anymore because YouTube doesn't like that because they're mean people. I'm kidding, I love you, YouTube. Greg also says that he wouldn't want to reveal everything he has because you never know, the show might somehow return, so he might possibly reveal more things as time goes on. So as of July 2023, this is everything that's been known that was going to happen if the show had continued. Tier 1, no b****s. Original plan. The original plan for the Spectacular Spider-Man was to have 5 seasons with 65 episodes in total going throughout Peter's high school years, as shown him starting his junior year in this show. And then once he graduated, he would go to college and have direct-to-DVD movies going through his college years. So I feel robbed because of how much material they wanted to do, because that is a lot of material, and it's just unfortunate we'll most likely never see this happen. Villains. As you know, Spectacular Spider-Man usually had their villains appear before they actually became supervillains, and the same goes for these characters that were already in the show, like Roger Kingsley or Ned Leeds, which one of them would have become the Hobgoblin, more likely Kingsley though, since he's like the main one, and Hobgoblin was also confirmed to be in Season 3. Mark Gagin, aka the Scorpion, was mentioned in the final episode, and he was also planned to be in Season 3. Hydro Man was also supposed to appear in Season 3. He was a demolitions expert in the show, and that would have been important later on. Miles Warren would have become the Jackal. Stan Carter has also appeared multiple times throughout the series along with his partner Jean DeWolf, so we would have gotten him as Sin Eater, and Jean DeWolf maybe would have been killed because I just don't know the rules of killing on these networks. Obviously they can't really show that too much, so I don't know how that would have been executed. They had Cletus Cassidy, he would have become Carnage, and then finally you have Hobie Brown, who possibly would have been the Prowler, so it's cool how they set up these guys. And again, it's just unfortunate we'll never get to see these guys become who they were going to be. Spring Break movie. There was a Spring Break movie that was a direct-to-DVD movie that was planned for the show, and it either would have been before Season 3 or it would have been incorporated into the show for the first arc. So when you think about it, that would have been immediately what we would have seen after Season 2 in some way. It was about Spider-Man fighting the Lizard in Florida, which is taken directly out of the comics, and a big chunk of the cast would have come down there in some way. Obviously, the Connors family was seen going down to Florida in the finale of the season, so they had it set up. They actually had a little bit of an Easter egg of this in the Gargoyles and Spider-Man radio play, and that's on YouTube, which I'll go over a little bit in my facts video. But basically, they sent the gang down to Florida for spring break, so that's just a nice little Easter egg. This is the only movie we actually have any information on. Harry becomes the Goblin. Harry becoming the Green Goblin definitely would have happened since they set him up for that at the end of Season 2, with him manipulating Gwen and then all the things that had happened to him throughout the season. Like Gwen being in love with Peter and not him, and then his best friend being in love with the girl that he thought liked him. And then the whole football team hating him. He literally has no one. His dad is gone, his friends are there but are jerks for what they've done to him. He's just alone, and I'm thinking he would have become the Goblin at the end of Season 3, but that's just my opinion. Across the Spider-Verse. Obviously, our boy came back. This was awesome. He came back, he's back, and we got him back. Kinda. Not really. But it's so awesome to see him again, man. This is technically part of the future plans because we learned his Captain Stacy had died, which is kind of crazy to know. We obviously don't know much about what else happened to him other than that, but it's still insane. Greg's opinions are unclear at the time of this recording, and he hasn't seen the movie as shown in this tweet posted in early June. And then he also said he had no involvement whatsoever with Spectacular coming back. So Captain Stacy dying, I don't know if that was part of his plans, but I'm assuming it was going to be anyway. But that's not confirmed, that's just speculation on my part. And we still don't know his thoughts about him coming back, but I'm sure he probably enjoyed it, or will enjoy it since he loves this version of the character and he helped create who he is in the show. But as of this recording, we don't know yet. Tier 2.
Get back here, shocker!
Human Torch. The Human Torch from the Fantastic Four was originally going to appear in the first season, but due to legal issues he was not allowed to be used. Greg Weisman states that he really likes the friendly rivalry between the two characters and would have liked to use him. So there is a slim chance that he was able to use him later on down the road, but we'll never know for sure. All we really know is that he wanted the Human Torch to be in the show. Other heroes. As I said last, the Human Torch was the one Weisman really wanted to use, but this isn't the only character he wanted to use. That's just the one he wanted to use the most. Greg wanted his version of the Marvel Universe to be like an early version of the 60s comics set in 2008. So the Fantastic Four existed in New York, but they were dealing with big cosmic problems. This would have also been before Tony Stark ever put on the armor, before Don Blake ever picked up a hammer. Ant-Man was around somewhere, but he's just not a big superhero yet. Namor was still a bum. Hulk was in the urban Southwest jumping around, but people don't actually know if he's real or if he's just a myth. And then obviously Captain America is still frozen in ice somewhere. So they all exist in this universe, but they don't at the same time. Like, they're there, but they haven't become who they are supposed to be. And I like that idea, but I never felt like this would have gone anywhere. Just for the fact at the time they were not able to use these characters, and I feel like they were just stricter on characters back then, like on the licensing. Sinister Six. There was supposed to be a Sinister Six episode in each season, so we would have gotten 3 more different variations of the Six. There's not many details that say who would have been on each team and everything, but it would have been really cool to see a different variation of the Six each season. I would actually like to hear your guys' opinion on who you would want on a Sinister Six team, because I just like all the different combinations of the villains. Had plans for everyone. I mentioned this a lot in my breakdown series. Wiseman has said he's had plans for everyone. He's very open about it. He has said this at a con. And then he also says this in the Ask Greg archives. And it's just, again, another really disappointing thing to hear, because that's just a lot more material we will most likely never see. Tier 3. Where's the Emily Osborn. Emily Osborn's role would have increased in the 3rd season, and she most likely would have been voiced by Marina Sirtis? I think it's Sirtis. Sorry, I don't know her last name. It just depended on scheduling and all that. She voices Demona in Gargoyles, and that kind of gives you somewhat of an idea of what the character would have been like. She's evil, and she's not a good person, and mischievous.
We must be united and strong, and willing to deal with the humans as they would deal with us.
Greg also says she would have filled that void when Norman left, but not in a good way, and that's all we know about her. For some reason, I thought she was going to be the Hobgoblin. Maybe I saw a fan art of it somewhere or something. I don't remember. Or maybe that was just like a theory or something. I don't know. Gwen's fate. There was no intention of killing Gwen Stacy, which is crazy because that's what everyone thinks is going to happen. This Spider-Man is lucky because that's what usually happens. It's most of the Spider People's canon events and all that. Marriage. Greg has said that if he did get like 200 episodes, then he probably will get married. So I think that if he was just given enough episodes, he would have kept doing this for a long time beyond his original plan, and he would have married Mary Jane. I don't know how this would have worked since he had no plans for Gwen to die, but Greg has also said that Peter and MJ would have eventually came together. He also said that grief would have brought them together, so I'm not totally sure how this would have happened at all, and we'll never know what would have happened, unfortunately, but I do think it's an interesting concept that Peter and MJ would have still managed to get together with Gwen still being alive. Betty and Ned. Betty and Ned would start to build a relationship in season 3, and probably would have kept building as the seasons progressed. They have a relationship in the comics and even get married, but he ends up dying. They were going to build their relationship in season 2, and we even see just the tiniest bit of that, but they had to cut the other scenes due to time. It wasn't animated or anything, it was just written, but that's pretty interesting. Boxing match. Peter and Flash's boxing match from The Amazing Spider-Man number 8 would have been adapted if given enough episodes, which is just a fun moment in the comics. More like the comics. Gwen, Mary Jane, and Harry were characters that appeared in Peter's college issues, so Greg took those characters and put them in high school with Peter, but he went backwards in their development. He was thinking, what were these characters like in high school? So what he was trying to do was make them more into their comic counterparts and give them more development and all that. So it's actually a really smart idea. He sort of did the same thing with Silver Sable, like she would have also developed more into her comic counterpart if the series had kept going. And he also does this with Flash too, where he would have become a good dude and just a better person like his comic counterpart. Tier 4. Please send me to territory. What are these names? I couldn't think of names, okay? Eddie Ravencroft. As we know, at the end of season 2, Eddie is sent away, but we don't know where. But Greg Wiseman had shared that he would have wound up at Ravencroft in season 3. And I'm assuming we would have saw Cassie with him as well. So again, just some really cool info because we know they were setting up Carnage and all that. More movies. The Spring Break movie wasn't the only movie planned. As you know, there were supposed to be movies after the series with Peter in his college years, but they had also planned to do a movie between season 4 and 5. But there isn't any information that has been shared about what these movies would have been like. We only have some details about the Spring Break movie, but if these movies didn't go as planned, they again would have been adapted into the show, and they would have gone on for one more seasons if the movies didn't get approved. Peter's parents. Greg Wiseman had plans for Peter's parents. Not much has been said about this, and I'm assuming this would have been in season 4 or 5, or maybe even in the movies, but I don't think it would have been in season 3 just because of everything that was planned already, because already so much is happening in season 3, like, just, I don't know, it just seems like they didn't have really much room for that. In the comics, Peter's parents were agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and died because the Red Skull had figured out that Richard was a double agent. And he dies by someone who had tinkered with the plane, so this story could have gone anywhere in the show, so you never know. John, Jameson, and Craven. There were plans involving John and Craven specifically together, and I'm assuming this would have to do with John Jameson becoming Man-Wolf and him hunting him for some reason. But again, these plans are pretty much unknown, but we do know that Man-Wolf was confirmed to be in the show later on. Tombstone and Robbie. There were also plans for Tombstone and Robbie, and these ones we can actually speculate a lot more on what would have happened since they have a lot more history together, so I'm assuming it maybe would have been more similar to the comic dynamic, but not completely since Tombstone is very different in this show. I'll do a brief description of what happens between these two characters, since I already mentioned it in my breakdown series. Basically, Tombstone and Robbie went to school together, and Robbie was about to publish something in the school news about Tombstone, and Tombstone beats him up for it. And he doesn't publish the story because he's scared of Tombstone. A few years later, Tombstone kills a man in front of Robbie, but again, Robbie doesn't say anything because he's scared. Robbie follows his career as a Philly mob enforcer, and other things happen, and more things, and even more things. Let's just leave it at that. Tier 5. No, seriously, I'm down bad. Musical episode. Greg Weisman said he would have loved to do a musical episode of The Spectacular Spider-Man, and this is again something we have pretty much no information on, just that he wanted to do one. Captain America memorabilia. Greg has stated in podcasts and even his own website that Uncle Ben was a huge Captain America fan, and that in the attic of the Parker household, Uncle Ben has this Captain America memorabilia collection, and as we know, he was still in the ice. If there was an episode of him getting out of the ice and Peter seeing Captain America, he would look up to him as a connection to Uncle Ben. We would also learn that Peter's inspiration for putting on the costume in the first place was really Captain America, which would have been really cool, but again, it's another thing I'm not sure if they would have had the rights to at the time, but you never know. In an alternate universe somewhere, maybe we got all the seasons Spectacular and they were able to use all the other Marvel characters, and it would have been amazing and be even more praised than it is now, but life stopped that from happening, so thank you. Eddie's backstory. There was plans to go deeper into Eddie's backstory more, and what happened between Peter and Eddie's parents. Of course, there isn't much information on this, but I'm sure we would have gotten something similar to the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, but they would have dived a bit deeper into it since there's not actually that much story to go off of. Mary Jane knows. In the comics, Mary Jane knows Peter Parker was Spider-Man the day Uncle Ben died, so she's basically known this whole time. Greg has briefly stated that he liked that idea and he maybe would have used it because it makes sense. You know, just one day she might have seen him crawling into his room or him changing into Peter while she's staying with her aunt because she lives right next door. Maybe she looked out the window and saw that he was Spider-Man. And he just thought that was a cool idea, but he wasn't sure if he was going to do it, but still would have been a really interesting idea. Tier 6.
Dirt in your eye.
Spider Tracers. There were plans to introduce the Spider Tracers. I always liked the idea of the Spider Tracers, and I think it's one of the things in his arsenal that makes the most sense since he's smart. I'm sure these would have been incorporated in a smart way and would have been really cool to see. Spider-Mobile. The Spider-Mobile was also a thing he had plans to use. We all know it's silly because he shoots out webs, why does he need a car? But I think this could have been a fun little thing, but he says it wouldn't be a main thing he uses. Stan Lee. Stan Lee was set to return sometime, most likely in Season 3, but Greg just knew he wanted Stan back as a cameo at some point. Miss you, Stan the man. Spin-off shows. Now, I mentioned this before, there was no plans for a Venom spin-off show. Greg has never said anything about a Venom spin-off show. It is something What Culture had popularized, but it isn't true. But there was a spin-off show in mind for Flint, Hobie, and Felicia, and then he said there might have been a theoretical Fantastic Four spin-off, X-Men spin-off, and Avengers spin-off. You know what I'm curious about? If he is still able to make his version of the Marvel Universe and have Spectacular's art style, but just not be able to use Spectacular Spider-Man, or try to make a deal to use him for an episode or two, but I'm not sure how all the right stuff works, but I'm assuming it would only apply to Spider-Man, right? So why not try and make one of the Fantastic Four, X-Men, or Avengers show? I think it would have been cool since he wanted to tell stories with these characters anyway, and even wanted to do a spin-off show with them too, so why not do it? I think that would be the smartest decision. X-Men. The X-Men exist in this universe, but again, this is the universe reset in 2008. So Charles Xavier has just opened his school, but only has 2 students, Scott and Hank. Greg has said that he had definitely had plans for all of these characters and maybe even Iceman and Firestar too, which would have been really cool. We could have a little Amazing Friends team-up episode, which would have been awesome. Tier 7. Finding the Titanic. Web fluid. Greg had a whole story in mind with the web fluid, and it basically goes like this. So Eddie and Peter's dad were making the web fluid formula, but before they could finish, they died. And Peter finishes the web fluid formula that his dad was making and wants to sell the web fluid and make money off of it. By the way, this is also taken from the comics, but not as smart as what they were going to do with it in this show. But anyway, He can't sell the web fluid because Oscorp had something similar, like the gobwebs that the Goblin uses, but he doesn't actually know that the formula was stolen from his dad. So the Green Goblin's gobwebs were also made from his dad's formula, but Peter doesn't know that. He just knows that they have similar stuff to his webs, and that's why he doesn't want to try to make money off of it, because they patented it. I would assume his dad and Eddie's dad worked at Oscorp, and they had a falling out with Norman, and he made the plane crash, but that's just speculation from me. But I think they had a great idea with the web formula, which sucks because it seems like they were going to be one of the first people to actually give a deeper meaning and backstory behind his webbing, but they just weren't given enough seasons to do so. Lover subplot. The couple that gets saved in episode 8 and gets engaged in season 2 would have returned to get married in season 3, with them being married in the St. Patrick Cathedral and them getting interrupted by a Spider-Man fighting a bad guy. And then in season 4 it would show the girl being pregnant, and then in season 5 we would see the baby. Man, this hurts my soul. We could have seen this whole background couple just be happy. That would have been so cool. Uncle Ben's death. Uncle Ben's death happened in late spring or early summer, and someone had said if there were plans to either acknowledge or have an episode centered around Ben's death, and Greg just says sure. So if we did get an Uncle Ben anniversary episode, I think we would have gotten something similar to The Amazing Spider-Man number 181, and Josh actually did some dialogue for it, so we can just imagine in our heads what an episode would have been like.
I brought you this, Uncle Ben. For years I've cherished it. It symbolizes everything you ever meant to me. Your belief in Peter Parker. It's the only fitting memorial for you, who were my father, teacher, friend. You always built me up when others tore me down. I'm returning your gift to you, Uncle Ben. It's the only way I know I can express my gratitude for whatever I am, whatever I've become, the good. Whatever good I've done with the powers that fate gave me, the best of me came from you. You didn't die in vain, Uncle Ben. You died that Spider-Man might be born. It's not the way I would have chosen it to happen, but if your death is to have meaning, then I must rededicate myself to your faith that one day Peter Parker will do something to change this world. For the better.
Briefly touched upon. These are just some things that are just like briefly touched upon. I mean, I know some of the things in here were briefly touched upon, but I kind of don't have room in my Iceberg. I mean, I could extend it out, but I can't really expand on these as like anything, so let's just get these done with. Dr. Bromwell has a crush on May. Gwen and MJ were going to keep developing as friends as the series went on. Flash and Peter would have become friends, which makes sense, and they also said they were going to reveal why the rivalry started, and I've gone over that in my breakdown series, so I'll just leave that there. They had plans to explore Mary Jane's backstory. Norman would have returned eventually. We would have gotten into the love triangle between Harry, Gwen, and Peter. Sandman would have most likely had a redemption arc, since Greg has said in the First Steps episode that was just the beginning of his character. Jonah had a reason to hate Spider-Man, and he would have started becoming a quote-unquote bad guy, as Greg has said, and I'm assuming that would have led to the Scorpion and the Spider Slayers. Kurt is still working on the cure for Electro. The Mudman story would have happened at some point where Sandman and Hydro Man combine and they become the mud creature thing. When Peter was being mentored by Norman, it would have had long-term implications down the road. And guys, that's it. Lots of interesting things here and a lot of great stuff. I would like to end on some fan art here just to show that the fans still love this character and still adore him to this day. So enjoy all the artwork that these amazing people have made, and let's keep Spectacular Spider-Man alive and maybe somehow bring it back. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys later. My throat freaking hurts right now. Hopefully you guys can't hear me struggling through the end of the video here. But guys, one more video and we're done with the whole project, and I'm gonna stop rambling and I'll see you later.
How I Spent My Summer Vacation by Peter Benjamin Parker. I can sum it up in one exhausting hyphenated word. Spider-Man. Harry, I'm sure it was a misunderstanding.
No, Pete. You see, this is why I don't trust you anymore. People really didn't expect me to stay dead, did they?
Help me, Spider-Man.
The times are changing, ladies and gentlemen.
you not been so selfish, your little girlfriend's death would have been quick and painless. But now that you've really pissed me off, I'm gonna finish her nice and slow.
Hey again, I had just finished editing the whole video besides the fan art part yet, and that's because I needed to say this about the artist. You guys are absolutely amazing. I'm actually surprised with how many responded to me as of right now. I had 47 out of the 58 respond to me, and that's just awesome. I'm glad I could get in touch with you guys. It was actually really hard to do. It actually took me a whole day, and then I did put the art of the people that haven't really been responding, or they've been inactive for a while, so I do hope I didn't make anyone upset. If any artist in the video either doesn't want their work shown or want it taken out, just let me know either in the comments or on my Instagram. It is the same name as my channel. Just let me know, because I don't want to offend any of you, and all of you are just amazing artists, and I want more people to know about everyone's work here, because everything here is just fantastic. And you guys are just so much more talented than me. I do stick figures, okay? So I hope all of you have an amazing day. And also, one last thing is, if any of the artists are maybe looking for a thumbnail job, I would be happy if one of you would take that for me, because I really suck at thumbnails. But I'm trying my best. So, yay. Again, have a good day. See you later.